Hi again, everybody. It's Sunday, which you know what that means. It's story time, and we are going to be reading again from A Weapon of Magical Destruction. That is book one in the Agents of A.S.S.E.T series. If you've been following so far, we left off on chapter 3 last week, and today we're starting one of the chapters I absolutely love, chapter 4. And the reason I love this one is because it gets to showcase Sage's nerdy side. She's a bit of a geek, and I'm a geek as well. So I get to really have fun writing this one because I get to throw some of those little things in there that I personally enjoy and let my character enjoy them as well. So let's get started. We are starting with chapter 4. And look, I even have a bookmark this week. My son drew me a personal Pokemon card to have as a bookmark because I said last week that I never have a bookmark handy, which is really strange because I have tons of bookmarks that I use when I go to conventions, but I never have one when I actually need it. So I have my own personal bookmark now. All right. Chapter 4. Achievement unlocked, Sage triumphantly announced to herself as she opened the door to her apartment, never more thankful to be back home. Maddie, I've survived my quest to the homeland and returned relatively unscathed by the adventure. What loot did you bring me? Matthew Donovan stalked towards the kitchen, stopping a few feet away from the door. His bulky 6'3" frame blocked her passage further into the apartment. Arms crossed, he glared down, awaiting payment for safe passage. I come bearing gifts of tiny foil-packed food items from the Sky Kingdom. She smirked and held up a handful of airplane snacks. He laughed. You are such a dork. Crossing the small distance between them, Matt pulled her into a bear hug, lifting Sage off the ground as he crushed the air from her lungs. Seriously, though, how you holding up? Can't breathe, she feigned, gasping for air. Dying? Dead? Sage went limp in his arms. My spirit has left this realm. Such a drama queen. He set her down and held the door open so she could bring in her luggage. Seriously, though, I want to hear everything. Dish. He was the best kind of roommate she could hope for. Strong, nerdy, and best of all, only interested in men. He was equal parts gossip and guru, and always there to listen and give advice. Thank the gods I have a sparring session tomorrow. She pulled her suitcase and let it collapse on the linoleum floor. That bad, eh? Did Mark do the whole surrogate father thing? He asked. Sage walked into the living room and stopped and flopped down on the microfiber sofa. Worse. Everything was crazy weird, like sci-fi weird. I was totally seeing things, and I think I need a shrink or something. I'm losing my mind. Unloading her mental baggage felt good, but she hardly realized how much her rambling made absolutely no sense. Sage took a breath and tried to find the tracks where her train of thought had derailed and start again. I felt guilty because Mark looked like he was having a hard time dealing with Mom's loss too. And the worst part, he offered me a job. Why? Matt opened the fridge, grabbed 2 beers. He twisted the bottle caps off as he walked over. We're his closest family, so he wants to make sure that I'm taken care of now that both my parents are... She let the unspoken words float off into the air as she snatched a hold of the beer that Matt had offered her. I get that, he nodded thoughtfully. But why in God's name would you work for the same company that killed your mom? Damn, dude. Drive the nail in harder, why don't you? Sage snarled at him, feeling like he was downplaying the emotional turmoil that the death of her mom had caused. To his credit, Matt's expression matched his sorrowful tone as he said, Sorry, hun. I'll retract the clause. Just a bit, please. The wounds are still bleeding. She took a long pull from her beer, but the minute she swallowed, she knew that it wouldn't be strong enough to dull the pain. In fact, she'd done a lot of drinking on the plane, in the airport bar before that, and couldn't remember being even slightly buzzed. Something was seriously wrong with her, and it had all started when she got the first call from Mark with the bad news. I'm just saying, he's kind of an idiot for thinking you'd take the job. Matt took a sip of his beer. Maybe his heart was in the right place, though. Yeah, that point couldn't be argued. No matter what weirdness she'd seen back there in his office, Mark had made sure all the legalities were handled so that she didn't have to fumble through them herself. That was one thing that she'd been able to count on her entire life, Mark being there to help and take care of things. He'd been the father she never had. He had the house all packed up. He even lined up storage units for me to hold all my things until I'm ready. Those last words hung in the air, a reminder of what Mark had said to her in the car. When you're ready. As if he had expected her to change her mind. Despite all her protests, despite all the pain she felt over her mother's death, why would he think that she would ever be ready to go to work with him? You should totally keep the house, though, Matt suggested. He brought her back into the conversation. How long had she been lost in thought? Rental? She threw the word out there without really giving it any thought. Yeah, vacation house for when we want to get away from Sin City. It's going to be a very long time before I'm ready to go back there. Would she ever be ready? No. If she were smart, she'd just sell the damn house and cut all ties. But those were thoughts she was not ready to entertain at the time. What she needed was distraction. Matt was normally good for helping to cheer her up, but like the beer that she continued to sip, the conversation with Matt was doing nothing to make her forget her troubles. You'll go back eventually. I'm not letting your mopey ass dwell forever. But at least I get a little time to dwell in goth-like darkness, she snarked at him. Oh no, honey. You are never allowed to go goth. Don't make me raid your closet. He waggled a finger at her before taking another pull from his beer. That made her crack the smallest beginnings of a smile. I could totally pull off a Morticia Addams, right? Wednesday Addams, maybe, he scoffed, on a good day. Ooh, somebody's going full diva today. When was the last time Josh came by? You need a serious dose of happy right now, says the girl in mourning. He arched an eyebrow at her that was every bit as fierce as the tone in his voice. Touché. So, since we both need a dose of happy and I don't have anything to punch till tomorrow for stress relief, how about we do the next best thing? A wickedly sharp smile stretched across his face. He dove for the television remote before Sage could reach it. Madman with a blue box marathon? Only if I get to pick the doctor, she matched his fierce eyes with her own narrowed-eyed glare, daring him to defy her. Rock, paper, scissors, he said calmly. My mother just died, she countered. No fair playing with emotions. When did I ever give you the impression I played fair? She asked, lowering her voice to a near whisper. She knew how to play the game. Of all the great battles waged throughout the centuries, this one continued to stir trouble between the sexes, and it would continue to keep raging on long after they were dead and turned to dust. But today, she would win control of the remote. Or die trying. But you always pick 10, he whined, countering her defiant stare with puppy dog eyes and a puffy lip. You evil little troll. No one can resist those baby blues. Put those away. She huffed and made a show of turning away with an exaggerated shoulder slump of defeat. Whatever. It's fine. She used the secret weapon. Every man who has ever been in a relationship with a woman, platonic or not, knew the most deadly word in the female arsenal. Fine. It had a meaning all its own. Not something defined in any dictionary, but its significance came quickly after the word had been uttered. Pick 11, then. I know you love him more, she added with an extra dose of passive-aggressive spite. Ha-ha, I win! Mark pumped his fist in the air triumphantly, as if he'd missed what she'd said, or simply didn't care. Not possible! She was a master of this game. She'd said the magic word. Sage sent a deadly glare back over her shoulder. Perhaps she needed to repeat herself. But because I'm the best roommate in the world, Matt said, laughing at her anger, I'm not going to pick 11 this time. I will graciously give in to your desperate need of cheering up and watch the first season of 10. The most worthy of adversaries, he played her well and managed to come out looking like a champion. Good game, sir. Matt was her soulmate. In every way except physical. And it didn't hurt that he was drop-dead gorgeous either. Why did all the really good ones have to be gay? All the man candy she could take, but none of the calories. He was the ultimate forbidden fruit. And that's why I love you so much. She stood and headed for the kitchen, considering their battle of wills a tie. I'll make the popcorn. Grab me another beer too, would ya, honey? Sure thing, baby cakes, she giggled, and reached into the fridge to grab another amber bottle. And stopped short, knocking it onto the shelf as she noticed her wrist. At first, she thought that she'd had... Let me try that again, see? Tripping over my tongue as always. At first, she thought too much sun had given her a freckle to go with her tree-like veins that are branching out under her skin. But now her eyes were truly playing tricks on her. The leaf-shaped sunspot had multiplied, dotting her wrist in a semicircle around the top of her birthmark. What the hell? You okay in there? Matt asked. How long have you known me? She pulled her wrist back, leaving the bottle on its side in the fridge. Holding it like a wound, she walked back to the living room. Years? Why? Confusion added to the concerned look on Matt's face. I swear my eyes are playing tricks on me. What do you see? She held her wrist for him to inspect. You get some ink done while you're in Phoenix? I like the whole tree of life thing you got going on there. He smiled and traced the new semicircle of leaves with his finger. How's it healed already, though? Okay, so I'm not insane then? You see it too? She sighed, but it wasn't in relief. She might not have been the only one seeing things, but this didn't explain how she'd gotten the new markings. That's not ink? Matt asked. No. Sage ran to the kitchen again and lathered up her arm with soap and ran it under the hottest water she could stand. Scrubbing didn't remove the mark either. What the hell is this? Well, don't peel off your skin. Matt came to the rescue with a towel and some lotion. She rubbed herself raw, but the mark still remained. Neither raised bumps nor sunken impressions. They were just there, as if her skin had manifested them. Like magic. It actually looks pretty cool. It makes all your little squiggles look like a real pattern now. Why are you stressing about it? Marks don't just appear out of thin air. Anxiety had sharpened her tone. Freckles do. You get too much sun? What if it's like cancer or something? Whoa. Way to jump straight to the worst case scenario there, lady. How about we take a breath first and calm down? Well, there had to be an explanation for this. Magic or something. Magic was something kids believe in, though. Something of fantasy and games, fun to play at, but in the real world it didn't exist. All the crap that she'd seen or dreamed had made her feel as if she were on the edge of a complete mental breakdown. That or something else she couldn't possibly say out loud because it was equally crazy. What's the first sign of skin cancer? Freckles, moles, right? Her stress level had already been at 12, and now it was quickly notching higher with each freaky thing that had happened. Soon she began to go into full panic mode, and there was no Mom around to help her. Mom had always been there. She'd been her rock. She'd always had an answer. Mom was dead, though. Her head was beginning to spin. The world blurred as tears flooded her vision. Her heart knocked frantically at the wall of her chest, desperate to be free of the constant pain of its cage. If only there was if only. There was no escape. No easy way out of this. Sage had to learn the hardest lesson of all. How to endure. Because her mom would never be able to make things better again. Mom's gone. She gasped the words, her lungs fighting against the very air she breathed. She swooned from lightheadedness and her knees buckled. She'd have crashed to the ground if not for the strength of Matt's massive arms. Slowly now, he pulled her back into a bear hug and stroked her head. In and out, nice deep breaths. You're fine. You do not have cancer. Where she was panic, he was calm, and his soothing voice guided her back from the brink. She had fallen back from the panic attack straight into a full-blown depression. Matt made the landing as soft as possible. Thank the gods for him. Words failed her. She opened her mouth, but all that came out were mouse-like squeaks. Come on, the doctor will see you now. He walked her back into the living room and hit the button on the remote. Theme music came on and for a moment paused her downward spiral into madness. Man, I'm a hot mess right now. I know, but you're allowed to be, and I'm here for you. If you're worried, we'll make an appointment with a dermatologist. I know a decent one. You're too good to me. She finally had found her breath and sucked in as much air as her lungs could hold before letting it out with a loud sigh. Matt disappeared into the kitchen and returned with 2 more beers. You say that now, but wait till you get my bill. Her wrist began to itch again, but Sage didn't dare look at it, fearing another spot might appear. Somehow, it all tied to her mom. All the crazy things that she'd seen, which had started after Mom died. And then there was the birthmark, which grew more and more like her mother's each day. Sage might have been in mourning, but she wasn't going crazy. Even Matt had seen the change. There was a connection, an answer to questions that she didn't have words for, but she doubted that a dermatologist would know the answer. All right, so that was chapter 4, and again, that one is one of my personal favorites. I love Doctor Who, so I had to give my character the love of Doctor Who, and of course her roommate too. So next week, we will move on to chapter 5, which is another fun chapter. And as you see, Sage is starting to see that her world is changing. And because she doesn't know why, it's totally freaking her out. And that was fun to write and to play with, because she does think she's going crazy at this point. And when she learns what the truth is, she might have wished that she was going crazy. But we're not going to do that until next week. So for now, thank you guys for listening and joining me for story time. I will be back next Sunday with another chapter. And until then, have a great week. Bye, guys.